hard as a motherfucker. Y'all know what time it is. Cue those applause. Gang, 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 gang. Oh man. Yep, your boy is back. I know I disappeared for a minute, you guys, but it's your boy Walter Doom back for another episode of Let's Talk About Horror, the horror podcast where I talk about any and everything that is horror related. You know, and I'm sorry, you guys, I've been gone for a minute, but it's been kind of like a real hectic few weeks since I've been gone. I have been recording podcasts, and each time I try and record, I've been having like real internet issues. I got that fixed, so this is why you guys are hearing me now. But I've had internet issues for the longest, since like maybe February. Whenever that last podcast came out. Fortunately, that podcast came out when it did, but when that podcast was coming out, I was having internet issues then, and it literally took me like about maybe, I want to say 1 or 2 days in order for that one to really upload to YouTube. So I knew there was something up, I knew something was going on, and yeah, even though I was recording still, I couldn't come out. I couldn't really face coming out. Plus, I wasn't liking what I was recording also. Y'all know the deal with me sometimes. I'm a bit of a perfectionist sometimes. It's so crazy. I don't know how many of you guys are perfectionists out there, but I tend to act like a perfectionist. I'm fucking up on the word right now, but yeah, I don't know how many of you guys out there, whenever you're working on something, like, I don't know, whether it's like a project, maybe you're drawing something, maybe you're like creating a song, you become a bit of a perfectionist and just want to see the best quality come out. But sometimes I have to tell myself it's all trial and error. You gotta sometimes put out crap in order to get better, it's like with Kendrick Lamar. I don't think Kendrick Lamar is the best MC. He hasn't always been the best MC. He's the best MC in my eyes right now in the game, but I'm pretty sure Kendrick wasn't always batting 3 for 3 or 4 for 4 with the albums he was coming out with, If any of you guys listen to Kendrick Lamar, or let's put it into more horror terms, let's talk about like James Wan. James Wan just came out with what? He comes out with the Conjuring series. I'm not a fan of them, but a lot of people are. Yeah, even though he comes out with these movies that are great, he hasn't always been batting 1,000, Like, there's been some flops in his filmography, like some of the Saw movies, even though he wasn't really director of, which I'm kind of upset, like with Leigh Whannell and James Wan not really directing those later Saw movies, because I feel like they would have really made those films really great. But I don't know. But yeah, like, James Wan wasn't always batting 1,000 with his films. Lately the films he's been coming out with have been really good, but, and that's the same thing with Leigh Whannell. Didn't he come out with The Invisible Man? That one is getting rave reviews, and Leigh Whannell's always been coming out with like some hitters, but they don't always bat 1,000, so yeah, that's just something that I have to work on myself. But anyway, welcome to the Quarantine Podcast, everyone. It's your boy, Walter Doom, and in today's episode, I am going to be ranking a couple of the Into the Dark series during this quarantine situation that we're all in right now. Chucky, what do you guys say about that?
What are you, fucking nuts.
Yeah, man. I mean, everything is fucking nuts right now. I mean, I can't believe like how things have come to this. I mean, I didn't really see this coming. I would like to apologize to you guys right now if you're getting like a bit of a feedback of the background noise and that's happening right now. It's pretty much raining hard as fuck today. And sadly enough, I mean, it's been raining quite a bit for a while out here in California, man. I mean, it just seemed like every week we just been flooded with rain, and people always say like it's always sunny in California, but yeah, it hasn't been really that sunny as of late, you know. I mean, probably with like less drivers and less planes in the air, you know, it'll be a little bit sunny, but it hasn't been quite that sunny as of late, you know. And it's just been more rain happening ever since this whole COVID-19 shit has been happening. I don't know how many of you guys are actually been quarantined in your house or self-isolation in your house, keeping your social distancing. I swear, I feel like we're in a very big dystopian horror film that we're all experiencing, including those that don't like horror. Oh man, I'm pretty sure people who don't like horror are probably trying to ask their horror friends like, hey, what the fuck should I do if this shit really pops off? Oh man, I don't know how many of you guys actually believe in like this whole doomsday apocalypse is coming type shit. I mean, I don't want to really state my stance on it. I mean, well, actually, I guess I should. I'm not really sold too much on it, you know. I'm not saying it can't happen. I'm just saying like I'm kind of like finding it interesting, you know. I mean, because everything does seem very dystopian right now at this moment. You know, right now we're all self-isolating. We're keeping our distance away from people. I don't know how many of you guys actually been at home or just like, well, yeah, just basically at home, because where else are you going to go? Or, I mean, if you're not at home, you're probably at work. Those are the only two places you could go, honestly. But I've been kind of in my own self-isolation for like a month now. I mean, it's pretty much rolling on to a month because it's been like 4 weeks, you know. The first time I heard about this was like, well, the first time they gave us the option was literally like early March, and I'm talking about at my day job. It was like early March they gave us the option to self-isolate, and fortunate for me, I mean, they said they won't give us many hours, but the hours they would have given us, we could use our vacation time for, and whatever. And it's just like, okay, well, it makes no sense to actually go to work, you know, if I'm just going to be doing the same amount of hours or whatever. So might as well just use the vacation time and just be at home. And that's pretty much my choice on doing that. And I know some people, they have the option of working from home. So, I mean, kudos to those that actually do get to work from home, be with their families and all that. Hopefully you guys are being a lot productive while at home. I mean, I could truly say I haven't really been that productive. I mean, I try to be productive by trying to get you guys a podcast each week. I kind of wanted to document a little bit about what's been going on during this quarantine period. I mean, God, I feel like I'm trying to, like, I guess, contribute to like some pseudoscience or some scientific experiment or whatever. But yeah, like I said before, I just been having like internet troubles, and it came at the worst time too. I mean, literally just dealing with like the rain, and then like the whole COVID-19 and quarantine, and it's just like, yeah, I'm literally running on 3 weeks of really shitty internet right now. So I had to get that upgraded. But how's the rest of you guys feeling? I mean, I'm hoping I'm not losing all my 5 listeners right now, because I know there's a lot of people right now losing jobs and all that. Well, losing their jobs just because of what's happening right now. And it sucks, man. It really sucks. Like, it just feels like a really shitty thing that happened, that you lose your job over something you can't control. You know what I mean? And I get like they need to close down places and what have you, but it's like, at least compensate the workers for their time, you know, while they're dealing with this. Even if it's like half the time that they're getting, at least compensate them with some type of, you know, money coming in their direction, because it's going to get real, I feel like it's going to get real thirsty out there, you know. And what I mean by thirsty, I mean, I think a lot of, if this thing gets any worse or goes on any longer than what it is, I just almost feel like it's going to turn into like the 92 riots for those that actually lived through that time a bit. I'm not trying to say it is going to, but I just feel like any moment the purge might happen. Oh, man. But anyway, enough conspiracies and all that. I hope you guys are staying well, keeping yourself busy, finding activities to do. I'm always finding something to do. Like I said, I tried to come out with something for you guys, but I was just unable to. But I've been also keeping myself busy, you know, doing reading, learning another language on my own. I'm using Duolingo for you guys that never heard of it or have heard of it before. It's a language learning app that pretty much give you like lessons that are pretty much fun, kind of like little games also. And they make it real interesting, just like learning languages. Like, they have a lot of languages you could learn. You could even learn like Klingon if you're like a Star Trek fan. So yeah, I mean, I've been staying consistent on that. I've been drawing like some days. Other days I'm playing like video games. Yeah, just basic things to kind of keep myself busy, you know. Talk to friends, talk to loved ones from time to time. But I don't know, man. I'm like so weird, because I am like sometimes super introverted, you know. And I could go on to be like, I don't know, this self-isolation shit to me is like a cakewalk almost. You know what I'm saying? Like, if someone told me like, oh, well, you're going to go into self-isolation for like 2 months, and the only thing you could do is only talk on the phone and video chat with your friends, or you can only get food from delivery and all that. And I'm like, okay, do I have Wi-Fi? I mean, it's so bad. It's really so bad to just be like that. But it's like that sometimes. I mean, not really sometimes. It's just like that a lot for me. So, I mean, I feel sorry for those that are like, they're more extroverted. Because me, I'm more introverted than anything. I mean, I do have an extroverted side. When it wants to come out, but there are times where I'm just like, nah, I'd rather just chill, observe, and, you know, be in the background for a bit. But yeah, I feel sorry for those that are just extroverted, or just like people who have certain activities that really depend on like what's happening right now, like people who really like to go to movie theaters. I feel sorry for people who like to go to movie theaters. It sucks. A lot of movies are being pushed back. My movie got pushed back. Well, not my movie, but the movie I wanted to see got pushed back, which was A Quiet Place 2. I was going to go to like an early event release, and I bought tickets to it. Now, the sad part about it is, and this was in March, by the way, I already knew about this whole COVID-19 and things that was going on in overseas and all that. I heard it was getting bad But I was like, okay, as long as it's not here, it won't be that bad. Eventually it did hit here. And I was like, fuck. Okay, well, if they're not shutting down anything, I'm good. You know, it probably won't be that many people there because people are probably scared, but I'll be good. And by the way, I mean, good job for our government for, like, you know, taking immediate action, being facetious, by the way. But yeah, so the event was like March 18th. So I bought the tickets maybe like 2 weeks in advance. So when I bought the ticket, and I say tickets like it's plural, but it was only one because I only take me and me only. I bought my ticket, and it was going to be a double feature, by the way. It was going to be A Quiet Place 1 at 7 o'clock, and then it was going to be A Quiet Place 2 at 9 o'clock. Real dope. Real fucking dope, you know? But, yeah, I bought my ticket 2 weeks in advance. At first, I thought it was, when I bought it, it was going to be the week after, but, well, the next week, but I realized it was going to be the week after next. So I was like, fuck, okay, I gotta wait 2 weeks. No biggie. First week passed. You know, the whole stories about what's going on is getting kind of crazy. It's getting kind of real. But I was like, okay, as long as nothing is being shut down, I'm good. Well, by that weekend, things were getting kind of, not really shut down, but it kind of hit here. Actually, it hit here first. And it was kind of like, they were letting everybody know how bad it was. So I was like, fuck, okay, well, as long as I, like, you know, if it's not that many people out and people are not scared of this shit, it's probably going to be like that whole Ebola outbreak shit when it hits. So I'll be good. The following week comes, things are getting shut down, and I'm like, oh fuck, so what's gonna happen to my event? And eventually I did get an email. They said like they were shutting the event down, and then I was like, fuck, alright. Got a full refund, which was good. I mean, they didn't really have to do that, you know, which I'm fortunate that they did do that, because, you know, some events could be douchebags. But yeah, got my money back, and the whole movie just got pushed back after I saw a news report on Blade Disgusting about how they were pushing the movie back. Oh, by the way, since we're on the talk about Blade Disgusting, I just got some sad news today. So for those that are fans of the Human Centipede movies, the main star just died. The guy that plays the doctor. Let me look for the tweet real quick for you guys. Yeah, so Blade Disgusting just tweeted out that the star Dieter Laser has passed away. I didn't really read the news report at all. I just know that he passed away. So I'm not going to talk about like his passing too much right now, you guys, because I just learned about it literally like maybe a few minutes ago before starting the podcast and everything. So probably for like the next one I'll talk about maybe his death, but other than that, I'm not gonna focus on it too much. But he did pass away. For you guys that are Human Centipede fans, and if you guys don't know who he is, he was the guy that played in the first Human Centipede movie, and he played the doctor that pretty much sewed everybody's mouth to someone else's ass cheeks. So yeah, or butthole, as we should all say. I don't know how many of you guys actually watched those Human Centipede movies. I know I talked about this before, but for some of you guys that probably haven't like listened to this before, those movies are, to me, are fucking awesome, except the third one. The third one was just totally disgusting. I did not like the third one at all. And when I saw this, I mean, I was probably drunk off my ass when I was watching it, but it was still the most grossest thing I have ever watched, you know? And yeah, he was in that movie too, the guy that passed away. But in this film, he was just, it was more nasty than ever. And this one had to deal with them being in a prison yard. So just like in the second movie, where the second movie sees the first movie as just a movie, the third movie sees the second movie as a movie also. And they bring back both the main villains in the third film, and they're all running like a prison, and it's just like a lot of disgusting things happen. The guy that passed away, he pretty much is like a sheriff, and he's just like doing all sorts of weird shit to like the prisoners. He's also like being very like Harvey Weinstein to his secretary or whatever the fuck she was. I can't remember what she was. I think she was a deputy. But either way, he was very like, I guess, Harvey Weinstein towards her. But even though she was still giving up the cooch and everything, it was just still like very disgusting. But nothing got more disgusting till when they got to the big human centipede scene, and they made like a tremendous big human centipede because it was a shit ton of prisoners that were being used, and it was gross. It was definitely gross. My favorite movie out of that whole trilogy was literally Human Centipede 2, just because of how gruesome that shit was. And I felt like they tried to build more of a story into like how movies could be an influence sometimes, and just like how this character is he's a bit desensitized by this movie that he's watched, and he tries to emulate what he sees, and it just becomes very interesting, like how he just interacts with the characters and all that. And it's also very, very gross and a lot of naked people in that shit. And we all love watching boobs in horror, so yeah. Boobs and gore. I've always said this before, but enough trolling around. So I'm hoping that you guys are staying sane during these quarantine periods. If you lost your job by this whole situation, I mean, I'm sorry that happened. It fucking sucks, and we're hoping if things don't turn into the purge, that we could kind of get some form of normalcy back, even though, I mean, it's gonna be a totally different world after all this is over. But yeah, hopefully we get some type of normalcy back and the job market's open again. Maybe you go back to your job, maybe you have to go look for a new one, and we all know how job hunting can be a bitch. Like, it really is. But other than that, we're gonna like move forward with the podcast because I think I spent enough time talking about this bullshit. But anyway, we're gonna go ahead and start talking about some of the Into the Dark movies. I'm gonna start ranking them. I'm gonna tell you guys what my ranking is. So yeah, let's cue in Ghostface right now to segue into that.
What's your favorite scary movie?
Alright, that was kind of lame, but moving forward, you guys. As you guys know, I've been watching the Into the Dark series on Hulu since like last year. First film that got me into this series was Puka. If you guys haven't seen Puka before, you guys should definitely check it out. It's a Christmas movie that's very interesting, has very interesting contrast with lights and everything. And just has like it's a mildly interesting story, not too crazy or anything like that. It is a TV movie. I mean, that's what all these movies are, TV movies. But this year they came back for a season 2. As you guys do know or probably don't know, they usually start their Into the Dark series from Halloween and they end it into September for whatever holiday is in September. So right now, I'm going to be talking about 2 films, but I'm going to talk about first Crawlers, and then after that, I'm going to talk about Puka Lives after that. So right now, the rankings before I go into Crawlers, the current ranking system right now goes as this. It goes My Valentine at first with a score of 4 points, which was the Valentine's Day movie that you all should really check out, starring Britt Baron and Anna Akana. Next up is Pilgrim with a score of 3.63, and that is starring Rain Edwards, and she was in the movie Hellfest. I recently just rewatched Hellfest, and I did not know she was in that shit. She played like the best friend of the girl in the movie, and yeah, she pretty much survived through the film, despite the fact that she did get kind of fucked up in that film. But yeah, she defeat the black people trope in a horror movie. But next up, Nasty Piece of Work comes in at third with 3.25, which is the Christmas comedy horror. Next up is Uncanny Annie, which was the Halloween horror with a score of 2.25. And last and definitely the least is the LGBTQ horror film Midnight Kiss, which was dealing with New Year's with a score of 2. And I have gone over many times why this one is the lowest score. It is definitely the worst film out of the whole series so far. Poorly written, bad acting, and just straight up like they really don't really kill off anybody, and some of the violence in the movie is just, they're all cutaway shots, and it's not good at all to watch. But right now we're gonna go into Crawlers, which was the St. Patrick's Day movie, and what this movie is about, which is what we're going to talk about, is the plot right now. It deals with a small town being invaded by aliens, and a group of misfit people, well, they're not friends because they don't know each other technically, but a team of misfits join forces together to stop this alien invasion. This film is a lot like The Faculty, Invasion of the Body Snatchers, and Assimilate, if you guys ever heard of those films, or if you guys ever watched those films. But if you haven't, I would definitely encourage you guys to check out those films. Definitely Assimilate, which was definitely a kind of like a I don't want to say a shocker, but a surprise movie to watch. Like, it was a surprise to actually see that it was actually as good as it was. But anyway, in Crawlers, we're dealing with like 4 main characters in this story. Shauna, who is narrating mainly most of the movie. Misty, who is the friend of Chloe, which is another character in the film. She is actually someone who is kind of like traumatized because she was drugged and possibly raped in a fraternity house party that Chloe just didn't really give a shit about. Aaron, who is actually one of the frat boys, he wasn't the guy that did the drugging or anything, but he didn't testify against one of his brothers who did. And pretty much he's like the one fraternity guy that's trying to show that he is different from all his other brothers. And Yujin, who is definitely Chloe's new best friend in the film, but technically her character isn't really that important. I'm gonna tell you why in a second. So, as you guys know, I usually rank these by different categories. For those that usually follow me, I usually rank them by like story, by characters, by cinematography, on how well they put everything together in this film beyond the fact of acting and story, and also on how scary it is or how gory the film is, you know. And out of those 4 categories, you know, I'll tell you guys the overall rankings of it and then show you guys where it ranks in the ranking system. So, coming back to story right now, I do like the fact that this movie does talk about aliens, and I just feel like we haven't had like a film dealing with aliens in such a long time. I mean, despite the fact that we got a real bad wicked burn from Signs from M. Night Shyamalan. But that's so long ago. But I mean, but after that, I mean, what other big budget alien film has been out there? And I really do mean like big budget, not small time budget like Assimilate, which was definitely a really good film, but like a real big budgeted film that, you know, was put in the box office and was really being promoted out there, and not anything like fucking Independence Day, because we all know Independence Day is like the shit. At least the original one is. I heard bad things about the sequel, but we're talking about horror right now because we are a horror podcast. So I don't give a shit about like Independence Day as far as like alien talk right now in the equation. I do like the fact that they do talk about aliens in this movie, and the whole body snatcher technique that used to go down back in the days, like with the original Invasion of the Body Snatchers. I really thought it was real interesting that in this movie, that the way they were snatching the bodies from people, they were literally biting their victims. Like literally the copycats were literally biting their victims and pretty much killing the person that they were copying, just to kind of like take over, you know, to take over like whatever town that they're taking over in. Another thing that I do like in this film that they do really well is that their message in this whole thing is about letting go. It's a really good like idea of like what to do. Well, not really what to do, but just seeing like how these characters in this film kind of like had to let go of like events in their life. So like Misty, her struggle was to like get rid of Chloe. She had to let that friend go because Chloe wasn't like setting the standard of like what a true friend should be doing, you know, and that means being with your friend in time of like need, in their worst possible time ever. I mean, Misty was literally drugged and raped by one of the beta dudes. His name was Michael. And the thing about Michael, like in this film, and you kind of like when you see him, you just be like, oh, what a douchebag. Like he does have like the tropes of a typical college frat guy, you know, rich kid, feels like he'd do whatever he wants, and which is what he did. I mean, he did whatever he wanted, you know. But yeah, it was all about like Misty, which the film kind of like circulates around, even though the story is being told by Shauna, who is a drug dealer, by the way, and a conspiracy theorist. They don't really kind of like focus too much on Shauna, but more around Misty's drama. So we're being told the story kind of like through Shauna's eyes on what she sees. It was about Misty's letting go of everything around her. Now, we're not saying like she's gonna get rid of the trauma, because she did go through some real trauma, and it's not easy to get over trauma like that, you know. But the thing with the story on her is that she had to let go of the trauma of, not all the beta dudes are like that, after she saw how Aaron was helping her out throughout the film and just trying to help her find Chloe and everything like that. But also, like I said, she had to get rid of Chloe as a friend, because Chloe just disappeared away from Misty and created a new friend, which is Yujin, who is a transfer student to whatever college that they were going to. I don't remember what college name, or even if the college had a name by that. But anyway, but it wasn't just about Misty's drama about like letting go. It was also about Aaron letting go of his frat boy persona and just letting go of the fact that, you know, the people that he's associated with brings a bad reputation to himself, you know. And after he kind of like gets involved with like Misty and tells her about all the trouble he went through because he's a registered sex offender. He tells her, like, he's only a registered sex offender because he was urinating in public, which is just, indecent exposure. Which makes sense. I mean, you do have to register as a sex offender if you are caught urinating in public, Yeah, he was trying to help her, like, learn that he's not like the other frat guys in his fraternity. But he had to also learn that, maybe he need to stop associating with that fraternity in order to prove that he's not like what everyone thinks he is. But also Shauna, she had to let go of her old beliefs about friends and like how people slow you down. Throughout this film, like, she's kind of like stoic when it comes to like dealing with like people and all that. But after, a night with Misty and everyone else from that college, she ended up actually changing her beliefs and seeing that, maybe she can have a life with like friends and actually be like other people. She doesn't have to like isolate herself away from people. You get me? But a couple of things that just was not right about this film was definitely still Shauna's like narration. I didn't really care for narration that much. It wasn't really that good to me because of the way it just comes off. It seems like the way they're trying to deliver this movie is if like they lost in the fight against the aliens, and to me I'm like, they didn't lose, they actually won. But she's making a video, I guess, in case of more aliens come, but it's like, why would more aliens come if you defeated the aliens? I don't know. That shit was confusing the shit out of me. You know what I'm saying? Another thing that was like really done with this film, that didn't make any sense, like why would they put this in the story, was that, throughout this whole film, like Misty, and it was kind of annoying me that Misty was trying to find Chloe so much, but it was like, okay, well, let's try and find your awful ass friend, But somehow, someway, Chloe ends up living at the end, and she is literally at like this last little club like place that they're at, which is apparently the aliens hub station. Well, let me backtrack a little bit because I kind of left out a couple of things. The whole story is just dealing with them bar hopping and everything on St. Patrick's Day, which, I mean, I don't know how many of you guys actually do a lot of bar hopping on St. Patrick's Day. I know when it's St. Patrick's Day, I'm so introverted, I stay my ass inside the house. I think I probably went out maybe one St. Patrick's Day and that was it. But after that, I have not went out for St. Patrick's Day in a long time. I was low-key thinking about going to like a St. Patrick's Day event this year because I'm trying to be less introverted. But yeah, coronavirus was like, stay your ass in the house. So I was like, yeah, maybe next year. But anyway, yeah, they were bar hopping, and the last bar that they were going to was literally at like what looked like a warehouse or a school. So to me, it didn't make sense that, while they were all looking for Chloe or the space station, mainly they were looking for that alien aircraft space station, appears Chloe in this whole setting. And to me, I'm just like, I'm thinking like, okay, Chloe's an alien. Turns out she wasn't. And it was just like, okay, so we're just gonna let Chloe live throughout this whole, okay, you guys fucking lost me here. You guys fucking lost me here. It was just like, how does she live after being attacked by the alien who supposedly looked like Aaron, but ends up actually surviving that whole situation, and now she's in the pub, well, not the pub, but in the club, just wandering by herself without a phone. Yeah, it makes no fucking sense. So yeah, with that, I had to give the story a 3 on that one. Characters, I gave it a 3.5 because it was just a decent cast. I mean, I didn't really know much about the actors in the film, but I thought their acting was pretty decent, you know. I thought also like the character developments on like how the characters had to grow from like their overall experience of like all the stuff that they were dealing with, you know. Um it was actually a really good execution of it. It wasn't cheesy in any type of way, you know. They just didn't put it just to put it. They actually kind of made it some type of effort, you know, of showing like, hey, you know, she dumped that bitch ass friend and all that. The thing I would say that kind of annoyed me most, which was actually I think was written good and acted good also, was definitely Misty's undying friendship for Chloe. And I just was like, why? This girl's a bitch. Like, she did not care about you. I mean, I get it. You know, we all put in years with friends. We all have that friend that like is kind of shitty. I mean, I'm probably shitty to someone right now. We all have it, you know. And sometimes, you know, the shitty friend is not really that shitty to some people. But, you know, there are shitty friends that are just like flat out, you really do got to get rid of that motherfucker because that motherfucker is crazy, you know. But anyway, like, yeah, just throughout that whole film, I mean, if you were able to annoy me with this whole, like, you gotta find your whack-ass friend, who clearly is just the most awful one in the fucking movie, more than the aliens, by the way, you really got my attention and made me go like, huh, that was good. The only thing that, yeah, I mean, other than that, I mean, there was nothing else really special about the characters and the acting. It was cool. It was decent. Yujin, on the other hand, I felt like she was like maybe the most unnecessary person in this film. Well, not the film, but just like throughout the film, you know. I honestly felt like they should have killed her character off a long time ago, or just like not even made her a factor in the film at all. Or if they were going to make her a factor, you know, at least make her a factor when Chloe is found, you know, and that they're together and they're actually partying it up. You know what I'm saying? But other than that, I mean, it doesn't make sense that, you know, Yujin is literally in this film a lot. And yeah, she's kind of like the one that's being an antagonist. And we do need an antagonist. But I just felt like maybe the movie could have been, it still would have been the same, like if she was in it or not, you know, them being chased by fucking alien body snatchers and shit like that. You know, we technically didn't need Yujin in majority of the film. Now maybe at the end, you know, we could see like, you know, her getting snatched up or something like that. And then, you know, Misty goes into this whole fit about like, well, fuck you, Chloe, after she gets snatched up and bit by the alien copycat who copied Michael, who Misty was more than willing to kill, by the way. Oh man, but yeah. 3.5 for characters and acting. You know, that's just my thought. To the cinematography, I mean, it was really good. Like, I like the setting that they did for the little small town. I mean, it looked very small town-esque. By the way, I don't know where they filmed at, but it really looked good. I do like the makeup and the whole little campy design of the effects and all that. You know, how they have like the alien aircrafts and shit like that. Like the explosion, it looked very decent and all that. You know, it wasn't anything like too crazy or anything like that. I would have to say the only real negative out of all of this mainly is that we don't really get to see what the aliens look like, and that was the one thing that I was hoping to see the most, was what do these motherfuckers look like when they're not, you know, when they haven't snatched a body. Like, what if they're just like, you know, just an alien and, you know, sperm cell running around. What the fuck does that motherfucker look like? So yeah, that was kind of like a disappointment to me. Another thing that was kind of like a disappointment is kind of like just sometimes it gets a little inconsistent with like what's happening in the film. For one, Aaron, when he gets handcuffed by one of the body snatchers after Misty and Shauna find him tied up in his bedroom, you know, they call the cops, and right in the beginning of this film, we see that one of the aliens is already body snatched with one of the police officers. And what happens is that the alien body snatcher ends up getting Aaron, who is just in his underwear because he was with an alien body snatcher who copied him. What happens is the body snatcher knows Aaron knows about that alien who attacked him. So he was taking Aaron to kill him. Because of course the aliens are operating on a hive mind and all that, which was also a cool little thing that they did with the film. In this whole little like set, once he gets arrested, we see that he gets arrested with no clothes on. But then once when he's brought out to the car, I mean, and not to mention he's already in handcuffs, by the way, I should say. So he's brought downstairs, already handcuffed, in his underwear. Brought outside, all of a sudden he has a shirt on. Where the fuck did the shirt come from? And judging by like the alien who was arresting him, how the fuck did he get the shirt on? That was real weird. Like, I just felt like that the movie did deal with some continuity issues and inconsistencies, and it was just like, oh man, this could have been so much better, like, you know, if they paid attention to like the small details of the film. So yeah, with that one I had to give it a 3. Gore and terror, I mean, it's an alien film. If you're afraid of aliens, I mean, that's on you, but it's nothing to be afraid of because you don't actually get to see a real alien. But my goodness, was the gore really good against these alien invaders. The only problem I had with it was like not enough of the characters were knocked off. Now I get like Aaron was surviving throughout most of the film, but I felt like Aaron could have been knocked off at some point, because usually when a character is surviving for so long, eventually they do get knocked off. I recently watched Don't Breathe, or is it called Don't Breathe? Yeah, I recently watched Don't Breathe with Jane Levy, and oh my god, I didn't really realize Jane Levy was in that film. The thirst meter was off the hinges once I realized that. But yeah, in that film, Alex, who was the kid who was helping Roxy, and I forgot the other motherfucker's name. Alex, he was the one who had access to, like, I guess all the victims that they were robbing's house because his dad was working at a security agency, you know, and basically Alex was using like his dad's business to kind of help him out to robbing people. So point being is, throughout most of the film Alex was surviving, but eventually once we got close to like the end, his luck pretty much ran out, and he was getting real close to getting killed majority of the times. He had so many close calls, it was fucking crazy. But eventually his luck ran out and he pretty much died in a film. He got shot right in the fucking, I think the throat, I believe, or the mouth or some shit like that, and was just knocked. Now in this film, coming back to Crawlers, I should say, I feel like there wasn't enough characters that were being knocked off the film, and that's what happens in a lot of these Into the Dark series films, which I feel like, you know, if you're gonna do a slasher film, you gotta really knock off the characters, you know. You don't be afraid to kill the characters off. I know if I had the helms of like writing some of these films, I probably would have killed off most of the characters already. Just saying. and it would have been a fight to the finish for the final girl. I mean, I think that's what's missing, like with a lot of the Into the Dark series movies. Which is probably also what I'm going to be mentioning. Spoiler alert about Puka Lives. But yeah, with the Gore and Terror, that one had a 2, which brings the movie Crawlers to an overall grade of 2.86, which makes it 4th in the rankings list under Nasty Piece of Work. And I mean, just because of like, it's an enjoyable film, I should say. It's not an enjoyable it's not a bad film. It's not anything to be like it's boring or anything like that. It's an enjoyable film. The problem is that like the story is good. It's decent. But some of the inconsistencies and some of like the violence that's in place, or the gore that's in place in the movie, and just like the characters not really getting knocked off, it just didn't seem real to me. Not to mention that we don't really get to see any real aliens. We just see body snatcher aliens, and that's about it. Yeah, it just wasn't good enough, So yeah, for this film, it was a 2.86. So yeah, so I'm gonna take a break real quick, you guys. But when we come back, I'm gonna talk about Puka Lives.
Puka see, Puka do, Puka me, Puka you. You never know what Puka will do. Puka loves, Puka fights, Puka laughs, Puka cries. You never know what Puka will do.
Alright, and we are back now. So now we are going to talk about Puka Lives, which is supposed to be the April Fool's Day film for the Into the Dark series. This is also a sequel to the first Puka movie. The thing is with this movie, this one has a different director in it, so it's not going to be the same Puka movie, which is something I noticed before. That's for starters. Anything that you want to relate this film to, this is turning into more of like a It Chapter 1 type film, Slender Man, or a Zombieland type movie. The thing in this film, the premise is a group of like 30-something-year-old friends from high school create their own creepypasta about Puka for laughs, but are shocked when it becomes so viral on the internet it actually manifests more murderous versions of the creature. The thing that I like about the story, it's a very enjoyable film on first watch. It's definitely enjoyable. It definitely will give you all the laughs. I mean, there's like pretty much laughs in the film. It has a definite interesting plot line, dealing with like creepypasta. So the thing is, like, the story is supposed to be about like these friends who create this story about this girl that they used to go to school with named Ellie. What happens in the film, which we see in the beginning, is that Ellie kills her husband because she gets fired from her job from SCI, which I think they probably added this as a new thing to the Puka story. To the SCI company, and she pretty much kills her husband after he finds out that she gets fired, and all she wants to do is work on Puka. What happens is that the friends are together, which the story circulates around Derek, Susan, Molly, Matt, and Benny. What happens is that Derek, he comes back to town, and he comes back to town because he wrote this story about about social media influencers, and it pissed off one of the influencers. So because it pissed off the influencer, he made it a personal mission to kind of make Derek's life a living hell in New York. So what happens is that Derek, he moves back to his small town in Spring Valley, and he gets a job working for the Puka company, SCI. During this time, like, he runs back into, well, he's living with his friends Molly and Matt, and then he runs into his friend Susan, well, an ex-girlfriend I should say, Susan, who is also working at SCI, which he didn't know. Benny, who later comes into play of the film, which he is the one that tells Derek that, hey, Susan works at SCI. He's also like one of the friends that they known. I guess he was like a much chubbier kid, and he ends up losing weight, which is just an interesting way to kind of like introduce everybody, really. So off the gate, we're kind of like already given a good backstory about everyone. You know, nothing real complicated. It was made simple, which I like. The thing that was kind of like bad with the story, and there's a lot of bad, the story is still to me enjoyable, but there's like a lot of bad in this film. How bad? I mean, well, tighten your seatbelts, kids. As enjoyable as the few chuckles are, the movie does get to the point of absurdity, because the movie kind of portrays itself as like a pure creature horror film, but then it kind of like transition into like during the second half of the movie into like more of a comedy horror. And I guess it's like it starts transitioning that way when, well, for me it started transitioning that way when Matt and Molly, who are the married couple that took in Derek, they see Puka wearing like lederhosens, and they're like, who the fuck, why the fuck is he wearing this? You know, I mean, that would be my first take also. I'll be like, what the fuck is this nigga wearing? Like, I would be like really like, I'll probably laugh more than being scared. I don't know, that's just me. But yeah, it was probably like one thing that really kind of threw off the film a bit. Like, just for me, like it transitioned into like this whole comedy aspect, and it just, I don't know, after that it seemed like it was trying too hard to be funny afterwards, you know, with just like little corny lines and little like silly moments, like when Matt gets attacked by Puka and he just says like, well, it's just a flesh wound, you know. I guess I was supposed to be funny or what have you, but it's like it kind of misses its mark. Another thing that's like really bad about this film, just like as far as like the whole comedy aspect, I mean, the film has no real sense of like direction or like clear theme per se that it's trying to project. So like with Crawlers, we got that Crawlers was about like letting go of like past trauma or past like whatever. With this film, I mean, it does kind of go into this whole thing about how social media is kind of like a dangerous tool. I do like that, but they do nothing totally with it. I mean, aside from like Derek being kind of harassed a lot by people on the internet because of the dude Jax, who is like this big influencer. Yeah, they really don't do much with this film, like as far as like dealing with something like that. And it's crazy because I just felt like they could have did a lot with that kind of like problem, because that is definitely a problem, like just dealing with like social media and how like influencers sometimes they abuse their power, and you know, some of the people that follow them are just complete nitwits. And not to say that you guys are nitwits or anything, but it's just that, you know, when people are standing these people that they never met in their whole entire life, and usually most of these people are like kids or whatever, you know, they end up like trying to terrorize or cyberbully, which is like definitely another thing that we're seeing in this film, is a lot of cyberbullying happening. People stalking Derek, you know, tagging up his car. And it's crazy because in the film, one of the dude Jax, which is the social media influencer, one of his followers actually works with Derek, and the kid that works with Derek that is actually stalking and harassing him, he's the son of the boss, of the big boss of the company that runs SCI, that runs the creation of Puka. So there was no way Derek could have really went to HR about being harassed, because it was like, one, he didn't know who was harassing him, but I mean, eventually you kind of figure it out once you see like how, there's a picture of Derek, looking confused and what have you, and you kind of figure out, oh well, that was Andy, which is the character's name. He's the one that was like being a dickhead and kind of like stalking Derek and what have you. And to me, I mean, it just makes me wonder, like, what gets in the mind of some of these people who are standing like their favorite influencer. And it's just like, what are you getting out of it just being that vindictive, just because of this person being toxic? But anyway, not to have like an Oprah moment, we're moving back onto the story, but yeah, it seemed like they didn't do much anything with it. I mean, I felt like they could have like really put more into that, but then they were also mixing the fact that Derek didn't really like where he came from, or didn't really like his home. He didn't like living in Spring Valley, I should say, and that he really cared more about living in New York over living at home. And I guess like the movie just like was having him trying to appreciate living at home more than anything else. Another thing that was also bad, and I know it's like more stuff that's being tossed on, is that it has nothing to do with April Fool's, I feel like, and it's supposed to be an April Fool's story, but it's like there's nothing in this that felt like an April Fool's joke, I should say. And none of it was like really like funny, like say for example last year's April Fool's movie, which was clearly about April Fool's, I'm Just Fucking With You. Every single turn around, you get Chip that's kind of like pranking, I forgot the other dude's name, and he just, every time he pranked him, he just said, well, I'm just fucking with you, and you clearly knew it was a joke, and it just like clearly signifies a laugh after that. With this film, it's none of that. It's really none of that at all. There's no signifier of a joke coming on except for like the dramatic music that's being used. And it's just like, wow, we're really going into like an Austin Powers type moment. It's really dumb, but yeah, I just was like, this makes no sense at all. This isn't funny. This isn't like really about, I didn't even know it was about April Fool's, by the way. I thought this was more about Easter, but then I had to look up and see that it was about April Fool's, and it was just like, wow, this was about April Fool's. That didn't make any sense at all. What was also kind of bad about this is that there is no acknowledgement of the first movie at all, which is like, how can you make a sequel about Puka but no acknowledgement about the first movie at all? But I mean, there's plenty of films that have done that. For example, the second Nightmare on Elm Street had no acknowledgement of the first film at all, and was just totally something different from the first one, So it's not really uncommon that this happens in movies, but it does kind of like create an annoyance in a way, And I just feel like it's dumb when you kind of like sequel a film, but it's not really a sequel at all. It's just some offshoot film that doesn't really get executed right. The thing that does get executed right, though, is that they did create that creepypasta, that group of friends, and I guess what happens is that they create this whole like ritual where like you could conjure up Puka, and I guess in a way it's supposed to be like the internet creates Puka like to life. Like each time somebody kind of creates this Puka image, the most popular image, is the one image that is the Puka that's going to haunt you. And I don't know, parts of that, it wavers on and on. But yeah, for the story, I had to give that a 1.5 just because of how bad it was. Characters was a 3. And just for the simple fact that, like, it's not much to, like, the characters in this film that was, like, really outstanding, but it was just more the fact that this film was more focused on Derek more than anything than all the other characters, which was good. I do like that they were focusing mainly on him because it was more of his story than, like, any of their stories. But, like, just the whole ideas, like I mentioned before, just dealing with, like, the Jack's beef and the social media bullying, the awkward relationship between him and Susan, where, you know, he does not like living in Spring Valley. He loves living in New York, compared to where Susan, she loves living in Spring Valley and not wanting to move out, you know, away from her friends and family. Those are some really good ideas to kind of like put in, but it just like, it comes off kind of like sloppily executed because we're just going through this whole phase of like, you know, what are we taking from this movie? You know, I mean, am I supposed to laugh at this? Am I supposed to be scared of it? Like, what's going on? But I mean, again, we're being hunted by a big children's toy. But yeah. But they do develop. I do like that they do have the characters develop, like, out of their struggles. You know, like Derek eventually starts liking home. He starts calling home, and he starts appreciating it. But I mean, it took Puka Invasion of Dolls for him to appreciate that, which is so fucking weird, by the way. Matt, which I haven't really talked about, Matt and Molly. Matt, he starts like growing, I guess, away from like his disdain of his wife's quirks. I don't know why I can't say that word right now, but his wife Molly, she likes to collect these stones and talk about like mysticism and ghosts and stuff like that. And Mike is not all there with believing that shit. He just thinks like, oh, this is just like make believe, talk and whatever, you know, just to like be there. But the problem is with all this that they have a problem with that splits them up kind of is that their daughter Lauren, she has an imaginary friend, and not only does she have an imaginary friend, but she gets nightmares also too. Like, what the fuck? But anyway, Matt, he's like trying to convince his daughter that, you know, none of this shit is real, none of the ghosts are real, things like this don't exist, blah blah blah, all this is fake. Where Molly is more like, well, you know, this shit does kind of exist, we live in a very interesting world, blah blah, you know. And I don't know how many of you guys really believe in ghosts. I mean, I'm somebody that really don't believe in ghosts. I haven't seen a ghost in my life. Maybe I have and just didn't know they were ghosts, but I never had that experience before. So for me, I mean, when people are, to me, I feel like when people are afraid of ghost films, I just find it very comical. Like, you're afraid of just like a few bangs, stuff moving and shit like that. Dude, it's just not real, you know. But I mean, I can't judge people because, you know, there's stuff I'm afraid of that probably they're not afraid of, you know. But moving on, yeah. The last thing that I do like about the whole characters and acting with this one, which is why I got it 3 also. I mean, the characters in this film, the actors, they all seem like they like working with each other. I mean, it seemed like it was real good chemistry. Even though as silly as the story was, all the characters seemed like they really enjoyed working with each other and being around each other. It didn't seem like awkward or, you know, lines just being told awkwardly or anything like that. I don't know, but maybe they fucking hated each other. Who knows? Moving on, I'm going to talk about cinematography, and this is where things kind of get interesting. This one got a 2.5, and I was kind of more, it's more based on probably because it's just, there was so many things wrong visually with this film, as far as like lighting, contrast, and editing, compared to like the first Puka film, which was like really good, like with the lighting and everything. You know, you get like the red lights just like beaming in the film, and blue lights to know everything is good and everything. You know, this film doesn't really do a good job. You know, there's a lot of dark spaces going on in this film, and it's kind of hard to watch spaces. Like, for one, I mean, again, I do like the fact that Puka had a really good costume design. Like, each Puka, like from original OG fat Puka to like skinny alien looking weird ass Puka for some reason, you know. But the one that was the most that I wanted to see was the Lederhosen Puka, and that one was kind of a disappointment because you couldn't really see him wearing Lederhosen. Like I mentioned before, you know, Lederhosen Puka came out when Matt was in Lauren's room, and he was kind of like investigating to see if Puka was in there because she was scared Puka was gonna get her. He goes in here, Puka comes out. As soon as he gets attacked, Molly comes in. She's like, "Oh, what the fuck is he wearing?" And, which is kind of funny too, because it's like, what the fuck is Puka wearing? But that's when we learn after the fact that whatever's popular on the internet, that's what Puka is going to haunt you, you know, which again doesn't make any sense to me. I mean, that was kind of dumb. But with that scene, it was too dark to see anything. Like, the only best lighting that they did good to me was when Derek, when he did the Puka dance and the Puka ritual, you know, going Puka see, Puka do. You know, I don't know how many of you guys seen Puka, but they have like a little jingle and everything. It's cool. I want a Puka doll for real. I really do want a Puka doll. Somebody needs to make that happen. You know what I'm saying? That would be so fucking dope to have in my room. But anyway, moving on. Like the only good scene was when Derek conjured up Puka, and in that whole scene, like, there was like a red spotlight that draped Puka that made it look very ominous and kind of like scary a bit. But not too scary, you know, to where I was afraid and shit like that. But it was just like, it was really dope lighting on that one, you know. But beyond that, I mean, it wasn't really, there wasn't much good with like what they did with this film visually. It could have been better. Also with like how like they did the music kind of like Austin Powers to kind of signify that there was a joke that happened, like when they finally figured out that the internet was responsible for all these Pukas appearing. You know, Derek goes, "I think the internet literally created a monster." And then you get this music going, dun, 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 or some shit like that. It sounded more like Austin Powers. But yeah, with that sound, it was just like, dude, this is kind of corny a bit, you know? But I mean, hey, if they listen to this podcast, they probably think I'm corny. So moving forward to the gore and terror, which got a 4. So this is probably like the best thing I liked about this was the whole like violence in this film. And believe me, this time they did not cut away or spare any limbs in this film. You know, they really show like the really violent acts in this one. And I really do like that they did this, you know, because they just, I don't know, the past films have been so cut away with the action. The only one that really did like any real killing or really like creative killing was School Spirit to me. But even then, that one was like, you know, you saw the violence, but they kind of cut away from it because, you know, they just didn't have that technology or whatever, or the budget for that. But either way, you know, they still did their best. But this one, they really did get violent with this one. The only thing that I really do hate that again, most of these films do is that they just don't get rid of the characters. I don't know why they always save the characters. Why do they save the characters? Let these motherfuckers die. There's times where I'm just like, there should be someone dead already. I don't know. Maybe I watch so many horror movies where like people are just getting like picked off one by one, especially slashers. If you're watching a slasher film, not a lot of people should be surviving in the slasher film. You know, the killer should be getting the best of a majority of the cast. You know, but yeah, as always, you know, more characters are surviving. But moving on to the overall grade of this one got a 2.75, which moves Puka right under Crawlers at the 6th spot. I really had to count that, just so you know, you guys. But yeah, and honestly, even though the movie was enjoyable, I mean, the movie is fun. The movie is fun and enjoyable. There's nothing wrong with it. I still like watching it, but it's just a lot of things that's lacking on the film that just is hard to ignore. And if you're somebody that like really is into like them sticking to the theme of the film, if you know what the theme is about this film, you probably want them to stick to the theme, which I didn't know what the theme was, and I felt like I shouldn't have to figure it out. You know, it should have been like something I could tell by just watching. So for the simple fact I had to figure it out just told me like this wasn't really good. And then just the direction of the story, like I said, the inconsistent lighting, just it didn't really make anything. It didn't really make the movie that good. It's watchable, but it wasn't that good. You know? So, I mean, even though they kind of focused more on the acting and the gore, which was cool, you know, they kind of sacrificed a lot of other things that they shouldn't have sacrificed. But yeah, those are my rankings for the Into the Dark series for right now. I can't wait till next month's new movie that comes out. I don't know what it is yet, but best believe I will be ranking that film when it comes out. Another thing, I've been trying to think of new ways to kind of like do the podcast, so there might be some changes coming to you pretty soon. Right now, as we go to the outro, which we can cue that outro music, please. Yeah, so as I am trying to develop this a little bit more and try and change things up a bit, because why not? There's gonna be a few changes coming pretty soon. Probably like the whole format of the show, and maybe, but yeah, some changes are gonna happen. Right now, also what's happening as far as a change is also the outro. We're still gonna have the meme of the week, but now the must-watch movie of the week are now gonna be like Tubi movies to watch of the week. So as you guys know, Tubi is like a new, well, not a new, but it's a free movie watching app, and you can watch pretty much like mainstream movies or independent movies. And I've always been preaching this since the start of this podcast, because this is a podcast about streaming, as well as talking about like some news and like newer movies that are out there. Mainly I want to keep it more focusing on more of the streaming aspect, you know, for you guys, because my main goal is to try and, you know, shoot you guys over to like movies that possibly you either haven't thought about or you probably wanted to see or what have you, you know, but also giving my thoughts and opinions about like certain like films and all that. So as we are in the outro, I'm gonna talk about the first must-watch Tubi movie of the week, which is Mobius. And I gotta say, I really do like this movie, so it's kind of like a biased thing for me to put this first. But yeah, this is a 2013 film. It's an Asian film, so you guys are dealing with a lot of subtitles. If you are not into that, I mean, you probably should avoid it. But actually, it's no subtitles at all if you think about it. There's no subtitles at all, actually. So I'm kind of lying to you guys. But this movie is it's a horror film, or a horror drama, and most of the dialogue or most of the story of this film is not even being told in words at all. This movie is actually being told in just action, and I think I've talked about this film before in earlier podcasts because I'm starting to remember that I did. But yeah, in this film, there's mainly just actions. There's no words in it, you know, and it's easy to follow, actually, you know, based on what the characters are doing. I mean, they do the most extreme just so you can follow what's going on. But the premise of this movie is to get revenge on her cheating husband, an enraged and disturbed woman disfigure her teenage son in horrifically fitting fashion. Now, I'm not going to spoil what that fitting fashion is because I really do feel like you guys should watch it. But let's just say, like, if you guys seen this movie before, don't spoil it. But I mean, if you spoil it, I mean, I have no control over that. But yeah, you guys just gotta watch it, because after you see it, and it happens like literally in the beginning of this film, you know, but after that happens, what happens afterwards is just interesting, and it's also very disturbing. So I would say, like, if you had to relate this movie to anything, it's kind of like Midsummer in a way, but you know, it's just not as long. You know. But anyway, moving on to the meme of the week. So the meme of the week is a Jason one and a COVID-19 one. So what happens is you got Jason, and you got that couple that's always walking together where the boyfriend is kind of checking out the person that's walking by, and you got the girlfriend that catches him checking out that person. So what the meme says is Friday the 13th and watching Jason movies, which is on Jason. You got me, which is the guy looking at Jason, and you got coronavirus news looking at the guy like, hey, pay attention to me. So yeah, that was definitely a good meme of the week. So for you guys that are on YouTube, that is definitely a meme that you guys should be cracking up at. But other than that, I am going to sign out for today. You know, follow me on the socials. That should be on, like, on the screen somewhere in the descriptions. But if you guys are too lazy to look over there, is Walter Doom 1 on Twitter and Walter Doom on Instagram. And if you guys are looking for me on Spotify, you know, if you don't have the time to listen on YouTube, you know, it's Walter Doom on Spotify also. But other than that, I'm out for another week of Let's Talk About Horror. This is America. Don't let them catch you slipping now. Stay the fuck inside. I want to say that over again. Stay the fuck inside. You know, don't touch anything. Do whatever, social distance. And I'm out. Peace.